myself and is a trailblazer for Asian leaders in America. I remember the first time I ever saw Andrew was 2 years before the presidential run he made on YouTube, on a YouTube video with the Fung Bros, if he remembers. And I've been following him ever since. Well, an introduction, I'm Leo Deng. I'm a senior high school student at Phillips Academy, Andover, funnily enough, the sister school to Andrew's high school, Exeter. And I will be majoring in art and philosophy next year in college, crossing over into humanistic and political philosophy. I'm the son of Long, or Dragon Deng, of iFresh Incorporated, who has several supermarkets that helped fundraise, which was just updated today, $34,000 in the last 3 days, which is a historical feat. Also, Don's son was the person who recovered this endeavor as it was almost canceled, working in tandem with my father to make this great support happen. And on another note, like Dao was mentioning, or before, unfortunately, the racist and xenophobic violence against Asians in America have continued in recent times with the perpetrator, Patrick Mateo, shoving an older Asian woman on Flushing Street, which was obvious assault. It was caught on video and went viral. And he was released without bail yesterday, according to the Queen's DA. So at the fall of Melinda Katz, according to Don, who told me about the incident. This was a completely disgusting occurrence that we never want to witness again. And we hope that Andrew can keep Asian citizens, businesses, and lives safe and be a role model for the new generation. If he was in office, perhaps he would be able to inquire Katz of the reasoning of this decision and represent us with adamance and sincerity. Personally, as a part of that new generation that I referenced, that has just become able to vote. I turned 18 in November. I see the merit in Andrew's policies and the potential of universal basic income and his policies of decriminalization of drugs, opiates, his stance on the LGBTQ plus rights and more restrictive gun laws that me and my peers, this newer generation, find so progressive and meritorious, and we care for so much. So at the end of it, what me, my father, Don, and the rest of the supporters want is just safety and a voice as Asians in New York. And we can achieve that with Andrew in office. I genuinely feel like we have a lot to look forward to in this campaign and journey. So I'll hand it off to Andrew.
Thank you, Leo. Can you believe he's a senior in high school? Does that not give you hope for the next generation? Really appreciate your belief and support, Leo. I remember the Fung Brothers video very well. Like, I actually saw them the other day in Queens. I need to get back on their channel. They're great guys, and they were some of the first people that actually explored my campaign early on. I, like most everyone else here, was heartbroken seeing that video of the middle-aged Asian woman being shoved down to the ground in Queens. Thank you to Daniel Wu and Daniel Dae Kim for being activists, not just on this particular case, but on other cases. And it really is heartbreaking if you reflect on the fact that as a community, we're seeing these social media videos of our elders being attacked on the street in Oakland or in New York City. And then there's this sinking feeling that nothing is going to happen unless we do something about it, which is one reason why Daniel and Daniel were literally posting rewards for people who could send information about the assailants. As Leo said, in this case, in the Queen's case, that person was caught very quickly, but then they were released also equally quickly. They didn't have to pay bail. It was not treated as a hate crime, which I find mind-boggling because apparently he yelled racial epithets right before the assault. And I am 100% sure that if she had not been a small Asian lady, he would not have reacted that way. You know what I mean? I think everyone here kind of feels that instinctively. If she had been like a different race or you know, other background, like, I don't think this happens. And so this should have been treated as a hate crime. It should have been taken much, much more seriously. And if I were mayor, it would be very straightforward for me to call the DA and say, hey, we need to treat this as a hate crime and take it much more seriously. And we are not that long from that being a reality, in my opinion. I believe I'm going to be the next mayor of New York City. I think that we have an incredible opportunity here right now with the next 4 months, and it's almost exactly 4 months until the primary. And I want you all to imagine the feeling of having the first Asian American mayor in the history of New York. I think that would be tremendous for Asian Americans here in the city. And we are 14% of New York City, so that's very significant. But I think it would be significant to Asian Americans all over the country and even the world, there'd be a sense that we can lead at the highest levels in this country and hopefully stand up for our community in a way that helps balance some of the invisibility that many of us have struggled with our entire lives. So Leo, so grateful to you. And I'm so thrilled to welcome the co-hosts for tonight. Two people I've admired for so long as artists and human beings, Daniel Wu and Daniel Dae Kim. Let's give them a massive round of applause. Let's start with Daniel Wu, an international man of mystery.
Hey guys, so happy to be here supporting Andrew in his campaign for mayoral run. You know, I was disappointed because I wanted to see him do big things on the national stage, but I think New York is a good platform for Andrew to carry out his ideas, because I started to follow Andrew and support Andrew because I was getting tired of partisan politics. I feel like we waste a lot of time with partisan politics and not spending enough time on making this country better. And I think Andrew came up with lots of ideas that had nothing to do with partisanship. And a lot of it had to do with just good vision. And that's what we really need nowadays, is politicians that have a vision, a plan for whether it's for the country or in this case, New York City, and be able to carry those out. And I think Andrew has the ability not only to come up with great ideas, but also a way to execute those ideas and make them happen for people.
Well, thank you so much, Daniel. I hope that that's what people get from me, is a sense of vision that is not particularly partisan. It's just solutions oriented and trying to solve the problems we see around us, whether it's anti-Asian violence or recovery from COVID. I do think that's the kind of leadership that New Yorkers are looking for right now.
Yeah, I remember reading a quote from you saying that smart people should be building, and that's exactly what you're doing. You know, I'm doing it in sort of in the entertainment field, but you're doing it in the world where it really matters and really counts. And I think that means more than any of the work that I'm doing, you know? And so I appreciate that and I support that. And we want to really push you forward in achieving your goals.
Oh, well, Daniel, you and I were joking that between the two of us, I think you and Daniel Dae Kim over there got a better end of the bargain. If you had to choose making art or politics, I think what you do, you know, like is a better path in some ways in terms of well, you know, I was going to say avoiding negativity, but I guess like you guys run into your fair share of negativity too, just because, you know, like anytime you do something like that, there might be some
Sure, but we don't have to deal with as much pressure as you do. So I'd much rather be in my lane than what I'm doing now, and then supporting people like you as much as possible.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. What I say to folks is thank my wife, because I really feel like she bears the brunt of it. You know, I'm like grateful to her every day. So Daniel Dae Kim, thank you also for helping lead the way and trying to find some of these assailants on social media. Like, I feel like you and Daniel Wu were like a superhero team up, where like the two of you were like the champions of our community. It meant a lot to a lot of people.
Well, thank you. But you know, honestly, you don't need to thank us, because we're exactly like everyone else. We were fed up with the silence and the kind of the ignorance is too strong a word, but the lack of care when it came to these issues. And you know, Andrew, that in New York, you know, is where a lot of these incidents take place. And so, you know, people are talking about Oakland and the Bay Area, but, you know, all you have to do is read the paper, the New York local paper, to see how many incidents happen there almost on a daily basis. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons why I think it's so crucial that Daniel and I are here tonight, because it really helps. I mean, people say that all politics is local. And so, you know, if we have a mayor in New York City that cares about this issue and is actually personally invested in this issue, it can go a long way to stem the tide against these kinds of crimes.
I'm going to do my best, Daniel, and certainly every time I see one of these videos, I have the same experience you all do, which is I think of my own family. You know, it's like I imagine my parents walking down the street and then just being assaulted out of the blue. And it's painful. A young person just yesterday on the Zoom here in New York City said that he feels afraid going outside in a way that he never has before. And that's incredibly hurtful. Like having so many Asian Americans feel like they can't be comfortable in their own city, you know, like walking their own streets. And we can do something about it. We can make this better. I'm determined to do so. And what's happening with Asian American violence in New York City, I think it actually reflects or mirrors some of the imbalances that have been true in New York City for years, decades, generations, where Asian Americans are the poorest community in New York City by the numbers. Between 24 and 25% of Asian Americans in the city are below the poverty line, including many, many children, many people who immigrated here. And people don't realize that at all. Like people don't think like, oh, the Asian American community is the poorest community in New York City. By the same token, the Asian American community gets a very small fraction of the public resources in New York. One study I saw said that that our community expressly gets 1.5% of city resources, despite being 14% of the population. And I don't think anyone can look at that and say, well, like that, you know, that seems right. So I'm optimistic that as mayor of New York City, I can help activate Asian American voters in a very powerful way that could transform New York City politics forever. Because after you vote, you get kind of hooked on it. Like I think if people come out and vote for this race, like they'll keep on voting. And then if we can correct some of these structural imbalances that have been in place for years, it can have a profound impact on hundreds of thousands of people pretty quickly. But that's what these racist incidents made me think of, that they're emblems of a sense of neglect that I think has been going on for a long time.
Not to mention the fact that this is not just an Asian American issue. Everyone has parents, you know, and you don't have to be Asian American to want safety for the elderly of New York City. And I think we all just want to feel safe as we want to walk around New York. I spent a lot of time there this fall, and you know, I had the Citizen app, and if many of you do, then you know that all around us in New York, there are incidents happening all the time. And I think there is the issue of safety for Asian Americans, and that is one of the reasons that Daniel and I are here today. But I think there's just a general notion of feeling safe in New York, and that's an evergreen problem, an evergreen issue in New York City.
Yeah, I just met with some business leaders in Bensonhurst in Brooklyn, and then someone talked about the rising crime in New York City. And then I said that it's up 94% year over year. And then they were shocked at the order of magnitude. And when I said that, I almost felt bad, like sharing the news with them. like they didn't realize just how bad it was. And even as the rates of violent crime are rising in New York City, the clearance rate, which is the rate at which the crimes are solved by the police, is going down. And so you have a very nasty combination in New York City where people feel like it's getting worse, not better, and that the resources that we have are not being deployed in a way that's going to turn it around. So as mayor, I'm championing a bunch of things, but one of the direct things, when people talk about police accountability, I don't think they talk about these clearance rates the way they should. Like, to me, the fundamental job of the police is to solve crimes. And if your violent crimes are going up and the clearance rate's going down, then that's the worst combination you could think of. And so like you should be holding police officers, particularly leadership, accountable and say, look, no one gets a promotion or a raise unless your clearance rates go to historic levels. Because that's literally like the definition of your job, is to actually apprehend folks who are committing these crimes. I've also championed an idea that's now catching on, and like other candidates have now adopted it as well, which is new police officers should live in New York City, because we already require city employees and other agencies to live in New York City. And I think most people would agree that New York police officers have an even higher level of responsibility day to day, and if they understand the community, then that would be better. If they even commuted to work within the city, like that would be good for public safety. You know, like maybe they would be taking the subway to like their precinct, you know, like to start their shifts. Like all of that would be positive. Like there are things we can do that can help make things better very quickly if we have the right leadership.
That's a really interesting point, Andrew. Like, you know, this idea that the police become part of the community and live among the community, I think is a lot of the issue that causes tension between the communities and the police. It seems like it's us or them mentality. And I think there can be a give and take on both sides.
Well, the vast majority of police officers presently do not live in the city. And we can change that, you know, again, like pretty quickly. I think it would have a really dramatic impact on the culture and of the NYPD. So as you can tell, I'm always trying to find concrete measures that we can take.
I think your parents' background is very similar to my parents' background. Your parents, I think, came from Taiwan, came here for graduate school. My parents did the same thing. My dad came through Taida University, ended up here in graduate school, and wanted us to, you know, go into, you know, a professional degree. And then I ended up becoming an actor, right? And I think it took a good 2 years for them to finally accept that. You know, it was when
your parents are above average. I thought it was going to be more like.
No, my dad was an engineer. My mom was a college professor, and they were, you know, education was very huge in our family. It was like, you have to educate yourself first, no matter what you do. And so once I decided to become an actor, I think it took 2 years for them to finally accept it. And it was, and I'm sure it was the same for you, when they started seeing me in the newspaper, and, you know, they were able to brag to their friends about it. You know, I think it's a similar thing with you. It's like, once you got national attention, I think your parents took it more seriously, and we're proud of you.
Well, I'm going to tell a story about my campaign. That was one of the highlights for me, which was, I heard from my mom. My mom and dad were in Taiwan at the time, that the presidential debates were being shown on TV in Taiwan, and they were like a big deal because of me, because like they were like cheering for me or whatnot. So my father showed up to one of these debate watch parties in Taipei, and everyone was like cheering me on. And then he was like, "That's my son," and then everyone was like, "Ah!" And then everyone like, you know, bought him food and drinks, and like he kind of got to be the proud papa. And so this was relayed to me after, this was maybe the second debate, and I gotta say, it gave me so much joy. Like I was like, "Hey, my dad got to like you know, have fun at a debate watch party in Taipei." So yeah, that was you know, that was one of the times where I think they were proud of me. I can't believe it only took them 2 years though, Daniel. Like my parents also, my dad went to Taida, he came to graduate school here in the States, you know, got his PhD. My mom got her master's, and so it was always education. To make things worse, my brother is a professor.
Yeah, same thing. My sister is an MBA, got her MBA from Wharton. You know, I had a lot to live up to.
Which actually, Andrew, if you don't mind, I'd love to ask you a question.
Of course.
You know, so many of my friends in the New York theater community have been out of work for a year. And, you know, stagehands, everyone associated with the theater has been unemployed and, you know, without a lot of assistance. What are your thoughts for how to get theater back on its feet? And is there any assistance program that we can give to these theater professionals?
It's a great question. I'm sure both of you have a lot of friends in the New York theater community. And I'm very happy to report, Daniel, that in part because we flipped the Senate and Chuck Schumer is a Senate Majority Leader, they're allocating billions of dollars to reopen Broadway and subsidize its operating costs for months, with the argument being that Broadway is necessary for New York City to reopen, which I agree with. To put some numbers on it, about 15 million people in a normal year visit a Broadway show, supports about 100,000 jobs. So there's a bill tucked into the relief bill called Save Our Stages that is authorizing billions of dollars in economic relief to reopen Broadway, and will actually pay their operating expenses for a number of months. And so they're hopeful that they can get their theaters open. There's also a very, very strong feeling that New York City schools will reopen in September. I think people are trying to target this September as like most things reopen.
You were mentioning subsidies, and you're most famous for universal basic income. I know you had implemented some of that in the private sector most recently because of the pandemic. Do you have any ideas for that as mayor of New York?
I do have some ideas around this, Daniel. So we have pledged $1 billion a year to alleviate extreme poverty in New York City. And a lot of that money we'll get back because we spend a lot of money when someone winds up on our streets or in a destitution type situation.
With all this revenue shortfall, from the lack of restaurant business and, obviously the theater being closed and the lack of tourism, what are your plans to make up for that difference?
Yeah, so we're going to face a multi-billion-dollar budgetary shortfall for the next number of years. And there are some ways we can get that money back, I think. There is a significant amount of waste right now in the city budget. And I'm just going to say very broadly, I do not believe Bill de Blasio is a very disciplined operator. And he's been mayor for almost 8 years now. So you're going to find a significant amount of waste. Like some of the waste is in the procurement process. I just talked to someone who's a buyer for the Department of Transportation. And he talked about how right now New York City is spending $300,000 per garbage truck. And there's literally one company bidding. And when I hear $300,000 per vehicle, I know those garbage trucks are really cool. But when I hear 300,000, I think, like, what is this, like the Batmobile?
Hey, trust me, I'm a car guy. That's not right. That doesn't sound right.
Well, it doesn't sound right, but that's what we're spending.
Yeah.
So I think there are opportunities to rationalize some of our costs in various ways. I have a proposal too to try to get some degree of revenue from large property tax exempt landlords in New York City. The very big long-term source of both revenue and equity in New York City is property taxes, where there are property owners in poor areas in Brooklyn who are paying 7 times the effective property tax rate of condo owners in Manhattan. And that's bad policy, it's bad economics, because these are families that if they had more money in their hands, they would actually spend it. The property tax regime has not been revised since 1975. Think about how much New York City has changed over. Wow. I was born in 1975, just to date myself a little bit. Wow. So there are these massive inequities that have been actually getting bigger, not smaller. I can share them. I can also share some of my policies that I actually can go down this direction because I think it's important. So I want to be the anti-poverty mayor in New York City, and there are multiple ways to do that. One is that 29% of New York City residents don't have high-speed internet right now. And if you're data poor in 2021, like that's a form of poverty. Now, it turns out that 99% of New York City households are wired for high-speed internet. It's just the internet providers think they can't make money off of the poorest 29% of New Yorkers. So if we put some public resources, and I pledge 100 million, and then ask the companies to put up a similar subsidy, because they're making billions like in New York City. And then I think that you can even get some techies to throw in some donations, because techies hate the fact that people don't have high-speed internet. Like it pains them to be like, hey, put in some money here. And then the customers would obviously be paying something too, because you don't want to give something for free. It distorts the adoption in a particular way. But I think we can get the 29% down pretty quickly over my first term. Like, these are some of the things I'm thinking of, like ways that you can be anti-poverty that isn't just like through cash relief.
What role the mayor has in pandemic preparedness, and if and when you are elected, what will you do to prevent what happened in New York City from happening again? All right, I'm turning my video off again. Okay,
thank you, Lisa, for joining us. Everyone, like Lisa's like someone that I've learned a ton from. I'm a huge fan. I'm laser focused on trying to have us recover from this pandemic. And so we have almost 4,000 volunteers who are getting out vaccination information to New Yorkers right now. So step 1 is the vaccine. Step 2 is a way that you can verify that you've been vaccinated on your smartphone, which I'm calling like the vaccination passport or immunization passport. And I'm happy to say that there are large companies that already have built this up 90% of the vaccination databases are actually verifiable, where if you put in when you've been vaccinated, it can actually verify it. And then you can go into a restaurant or bar or theater and say, hey, I've been vaccinated. So Lisa, this plays into your question, which is like, how do you prepare for the next one? If you actually have a system where people are able to verify their vaccination information or their testing information, and you get a new pandemic, then you'd actually have the capacity to much more effectively do contact tracing and try and isolate people who've been in contact with the new virus. And you'd actually have some tools in place so that people could monitor, self-monitor, share data, and hopefully have built up a sense of public trust. Because if you're walking into your office building every day and you're flashing your smartphone with this thing, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to be like, okay, like now you're asking me about this new pandemic, like have I been in contact with anyone? Like what data do I need to share? So that's the hope. And the template for this, I'm going to just throw this out there just for fun, is Taiwan. Really, because Taiwan like had very robust data sharing early on. I think their total number of cases was literally in the double digits. And so they managed to get on top of this quickly using some tools. So the hope is that by getting us through this pandemic, we'll actually have built the infrastructure that will prepare us for the next one, Lisa. Because you're not wrong, that there will be some variant or some other bug that comes our way. And New York City is a very place-based economy. As joyous as it is to be on the Zoom with you all, New York City will not thrive in an environment where everyone thinks you can Zoom to everything. You know what I mean? Like this is a place where people have to be able to come together. So we have to continuously invest in our capacity to safely come together.
There is a groundswell movement happening right now, and I think, Andrew, you're at the spear tip. You're the tip of the spear, because we are all trying to make our presence felt in America as Americans, and we're all trying to make our own mark and let people outside of our community know that we're American and that our voices count and they matter. And having political representatives such as yourself will make a big difference in that regard.
Well,
Yeah,
Daniel, one of the things go ahead, Daniel.
I second that notion, in that, like coming from immigrant parents, the thing is to get, into a profession. Don't go into entertainment, don't go into politics. But I think our lack of presence in those fields have hurt us in the long term. And we're seeing that now. And so the fact that you and I and Daniel Dae Kim in here can be doing something that's non-traditional and showing our presence in society makes us less invisible. And that's the most important thing, I think, is that because we've been sort of passive to the system, we've become invisible and we become, others. And so by you running for mayor, running for president, by Daniel Dae Kim having, amazing TV shows and movies, we're putting a presence out there to show that we're part of this American fabric.
I couldn't agree more. I remember, actually, you guys probably remember this. The first time you saw my presidential campaign might have been the first presidential debate, maybe. I remember after I left that debate, like I just saw a news clip and I just saw a picture of myself on that debate stage. And even I did a double take, like seeing myself on the debate stage. I was like, wow, like that's different. It's like a different, a different image. It gave me a lot of pride and a lot of joy. It also made me want to fight harder and do more. I gotta say, we have an historic opportunity right now in front of us. Like I'm right now the front runner in this race. The last poll that we did not run had me up by 12 points. Like our chance to make history here is very, very clear. And I want us to take full advantage of this opportunity. Like I want you all to imagine June 22nd, how you will feel if I win the Democratic primary and I'm almost certainly the next mayor of New York City. And then I want you to imagine how you'll feel if I just narrowly lose. We can make that first vision a reality if we just roll up our sleeves and do some work for the next 4 months. So I'm ready to work. I'm ready to bust my tail. And I'm ready to take on what I think is going to be one of the toughest jobs in the country over the next number of years. Like, I do not have any illusions that New York's recovery is going to be swift or easy. I think if I make good decisions, there will be certain people who are upset at me in any moment in time. Like that, that's just going to be the nature of this job. But I want this job very, very badly because I think I can do it better than the other people who are running. And if you want to help us achieve that first version when we're all psyched that I won that primary, please do talk to your friends in New York City or anywhere. Like if you know people are interested, say, hey, have you donated? Have you volunteered? Let's just do the work and give ourselves a chance to show that we can accomplish anything in this country, including leading the greatest city in the world. Thank you so much, Daniel and Daniel. You guys are heroes and role models of mine. It's such a joy to be able to share this time with you. Let's show them what we can do. Let's show them what we got.
Let's go. I'm fired up. Let's go.
That's right. You know,
I got chills just listening to you speak right there. Like I see it. I see it happening. It's going to happen.
It's part of a collective movement, Andrew, and everyone that's on this call is part of it.
Well, thank you guys so much. You're leaders and champions and friends. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to everyone on this call. Your support means the world to us. This is just the beginning. Let's do the work and let's win this one. It's so winnable. Oh, I can see it so clearly.